Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest, Chapter 70. When we last left our heroes, they all arrived in Elentir, thanks to Celine, and they appeared on a cloud. There were some notes about, how magic is both stronger in Elentir and has a weird quality, which came from Irene, who was awake again thanks to the weirdness of Elentir's magic. But then the gang was separated by a fucking arm tsunami, which is the greatest thing Mashima has ever drawn. So now Gray, Natsu, and Happy are in a place of rising snow. Lucy's in some kind of jungle. She fought off a slime monster. She can summon her celestial spirits without keys, thanks to the weirdness of the magic of Elentir. And somewhere else, Erza, Wendy, and Carla ran into these shambling versions of walking magic power, and are being watched by Youko of the Moonlit beauty gods. So yeah. All that being said, let's jump right on into Chapter 70, Spirior. And our picture here is of Loxus and Mira at an aquarium. It's kind of like date. It looks like a date. I've never really understood, the thing about Mira Loxus shipping, is that there's no interactions really between them outside of cover pictures, as far as I can recall. And I'm not just a little bit biased. I've been a Froxus shipper since 2012, though I have been a Froxus shipper since 2012. I just don't get Miraxus at all. So I'm not a big fan of this, but whatever, it's no big deal. So we open with continuing Erza, Wendy, and Carla's encounters with the shambling magic power, as Erza jumps straight into Requip, Heaven's Wheel Armor, Trinity Sword, and she slashes at a couple of the magic. I can't just call them magic powers. That just seems like a bad title. But a couple of the pseudo men, let's call them. And then Wendy sucks up for a Sky Dragon's Roar and just blows a few of them away. And they kind of turn into these little, they kind of shatter. They're little, like chips of them, for lack of a better word. Like chipped paint is the vibe I get. And as Wendy watches, they recoalesce back into the pseudo-men that they already were. And Carla, shocked, they reformed? And Erza, as she slices one in half, do our attacks have no effect? And yeah, he just reforms again after the one that she slashes. And Wendy kind of reacts, oh no! And then she gets, one of them punches her. Ah! Wendy! Another one punches Erza, but she kind of, blocks it pretty easily. Out of the way! Circle Sword! And she cuts down, 3 of them, which is not going to do much, because again, they can just reform as that happens. And Erza, kind of grunts, what now? And then, I kind of predicted would happen last time, Irene appears to Wendy, not to Erza yet, though I expect that will change by this conflict's end. And Irene tells Wendy, use a conceptual enchantment. Irene-san, what you see here is neither magic nor curse. It is spiritual arts. These are spiritual art life forms created by such a technique. I'm sure the practitioner is here somewhere. Be careful. Okay. So now there's a new thing called spiritual arts. And I'm not really sure what that means. The difference between magic and curse is as simple as, a curse is what demons use, but practically there isn't really that much different, as I recall. Curses don't use magic power, they don't use ethernano, and so wouldn't be affected by face. But there's not a lot of difference between magic and curse, if I recall correctly. And so I don't know, maybe spiritual arts is just magic used by these gods, but it's also clearly something that Irene knows about. And given that she spent 400 years not exactly studying things when she was a dragon, it means it had to have at least been prominent 400 years ago. And honestly, if the five dragon gods were around for the Dragon King Festival, which Irene was around for, um, she might have actually met Celine in the past, and that's how she knows this. But either way, Wendy does not know what a conceptual enchantment is, nor what spiritual arts are. And she wonders, but what is a conceptual enchantment? Can I do such a thing? And Irene is actually still there to tell Wendy. It's simple. You know how ethernano is required to use magic? Well, spiritual arts have a similar factor in order to use them. Spirior. So there's our chapter title. I mean, again, we don't really know what spirior is. The spiritual arts have developed so much that this place is littered with spirior. All you have to do is take it in and enchant your magic with it. If you give magic the concept of spiritual arts, you'll be able to oppose those arts. Okay. So I'm not entirely sure what that means in practice. So she takes in spirior just like she would take an ethernano in the real world, in Earthland. But ethernano comes from inside her. It's not something that's out in the world. But because of the arts have developed, spirior is everywhere. I'm not quite following. I feel like Mashima just dropped an entirely new concept of magic, and is just like, here's 2 pages, now have fun with it. And so maybe once Wendy starts actually doing things, I'll be able to like figure out once I see it in practice, it'll make more sense. Anyway, if you give magic the concept of spiritual arts, you'll be able to oppose those arts. Wendy nods. I'll give it a try. I'm going to sleep for real this time. Good night. And Irene vanishes. And so Wendy tries it. And so she kind of sucks in. I think she's sucking in the spirior to herself, and she kind of feels it. It's different from ethernano. It's a power similar to magical power. That's it. Conceptual enchant. I'll enchant Erza with spiritual arts. And so she uses the spiritual art on Erza, and she kind of starts to glow. And she looks at herself. Wendy, what is this? Please, you have to attack. So before we go any further, though, I want to bring up this line. It's a power similar to magical power. Which just means that it's similar to what she's been using. But it's also different. I don't know. Anyway, this time, Erza equips into her what's the form of the red pants and the boob bandages? I forget what it's called, but she uses it to slice down one of the spiritual arts men, and this time the chips just fall to the ground, burnt out. My attack connected. You did it, and Carla, you did it. And Erza, beaming towards Wendy. That was incredible, Wendy. Not at all. And then she thinks to herself, I had some help from your mother. Yeah, I'm kind of curious how Erza is going to react to learning that Wendy, for the past, week or so in Universe, has been occasionally talking to her mom again. I don't know. Anyway, the two of them, then, now they can actually destroy these guys, start attacking them. Let us scatter them. Right! And, they now they can actually hit. They're not exactly much threat. And Youko of the Moonlit Beauty Gods watches them from the cliff she's on. Well, now they're not bad. For becoming Celine Sama's toys. Oh, she's jumped down. She jumps down to greet them. For becoming Celine Sama's toys. I guess you pass. And Erza turns back to her. Who are you? I am one of Celine Sama's bodyguards, the Moonlit Beauty Gods. Call me Youko of Pandemonium. In Japanese, her title is Hyaki Yagyo, an expression that means Night Parade of 100 Demons. Okay. That kind of reminds me of, we've been watching Jujutsu Kaisen, the anime. I've not read the manga at all. And the fetish guy who who was involved in a parade of 100 curses, I think, and killed them all. I wonder if that's a common, like, if that's a like folk tale or something that can be drawn on in Japanese folklore. I don't know. Anyway, call me Youko of Pandemonium. Carla looks at her. A minion of Selene. And Youko looks at them. I'm about to show you the essence of a yokai. Okay. So, there have never been yokai in Fairy Tail before. And I'm curious what that means for Elentir as a whole. But before we see any more, we check back in with Natsu and Gray. And they're already arguing. Are we really gonna find them here? The hell if I know. And isn't it snowing way harder than before? But now it's falling down. You use fire, so just burn all of it. And Happy, who's also like exhausted in the snow. Hey, could you quit arguing already? And then they see a silhouette in the snow, or in the distance. And Natsu looks shocked at that, and Gray says, someone's coming. And we see a long-haired woman in like a kimono with this flower in her hair, and this the important thing to note, I think, is this ice, this like snowflake design from her forehead down to her nose. Which means she's probably responsible for all this snow, and I am one of the Moonlit beauty gods. There we go, what I was right about to say. Hakune, the snow, moon, and flowers. In Japanese, her title is Setsugeka, another Japanese expression, which implies that the 100 Demons Parade thing is a Japanese expression, and how the same concept shows up in Fairy Tail and Jujutsu Kaisen. Anyway, this place. And before she can go on about this place, Gray asks, a woman? Her scent is like Selene's. And what was her name again? Hakune looks up at them. Oh my, what splendid gentlemen you are. There are only women among the Moonlit beauty gods. Looking at such strong men makes me want to kill them. Okay, that's a thing. And with that, it's time to go check in on Lucy. Speaking of, we still have, we've transferred to, both this chapter and the last chapter had a section for Natsu and Gray, for Lucy, for Erza and Wendy. We don't know what happened to Toka and Ferris yet. So I'm curious if we'll see them by the end of the chapter. But anyway, in the jungle, Lucy looks around. Now what? I got separated from everyone in this place. And Taurus responds, Moo. Anyways, what a strange place this is. And then he sees something. Just take a look at those flowers, Lucy-san. They're singing and stuff. We see they are singing like they're cartoon flowers. Lucy looks at it. That's kind of fancy in its own way. And then the flowers snap at her. Who you calling fancy, you fucking bitch? You think all fucking flowers like to be called fucking fancy? Say something, bitch, or I'll blow pollen up your fucking ass. What the fuck? I love it. I love them so much. I love Elentir so much. This is great. And Lucy kind of runs away dejectedly. I'm sorry. And she kind of her and Taurus both kind of slink away as the flowers go back to singing happily. I'm in a place where me and a cow got scolded by flowers. That's one way to take this. Quite thoroughly. But just then Taurus notices something. Lucy-san, take your clothes off right now. Taurus. Okay. This is gonna be one of those gags that looks like he's just being horny, but there's actually an important reason for it. And Lucy kind of covers up. What for? It's just, I sensed a presence just now, and I thought it would be a good time to use the old seduction strategy. Talk about jumping the gun. Okay, so it actually was playing off of my own presumptions that it would be a serious thing, when in fact it was in the end, just a gag. But not quite a gag, because Taurus does sense that something is up. Anyway, Lucy says, besides, you know my seduction strategy hardly ever works, and why would I take my clothes off? Taurus, back to business, looks around. But seriously, there really is some kind of presence. Taurus, behind you! And we see, Taurus looks behind him, and there's a very large figure looming behind him, who puts her foot down. I'm the moonlit beauty god Mimi the Immovable. I have come to destroy you. And what we see is this very, very tall, very, very buff lady. I'm not entirely sure. It kind of looks like a martial arts robe, which would fit with the whole Mimi the Immovable thing. So, and Lucy looks up. So big, moo. And just then, Mimi looks down at Lucy, and she's into her. You can tell. Mimi kind of like holds her nose. Hey now, that's way too sexy. And Taurus joining in. Moo, I was just thinking that. Lucy kind of sighs. I'm not into giant women or cows, you know. To be continued next time. So no update from Ferris or Toka. We'll see them eventually, I suspect. But we see at least the early structure of the arc is going to be, you know, Wendy and Carla versus Youko, Natsu and Gray versus Hakune, and Lucy versus Mimi. And we don't know how many Moonlit beauty gods there are. There might be a lot more than just these three. It might be like the Beast Squads in Eden Zero, where like we see, you know, the first group, and we're like, all right, now they're done, and then it's like, oh wait, there's a whole lot more of them. But for now, this is very much a setup chapter, especially in its second half, as this really sets up Yoko's arrival, where Wendy and Carla are. We meet Hakune, and then we meet Mimi. Interestingly enough, though, Youko and Hakune both have these like traditional Japanese expressions attached to their names. Satsugeka for Hakune, and Hyakiyagyo in the case of Youko. But Mimi is just Mimi the Immovable, and unless the translators just didn't bother to put a translator note there for more context, it seems that it's just a title. I have no idea if that means anything, or if I'm just kind of reaching in the dark, because we know so little about them anyway. But anyway, I'm excited for all of those. Hakune is one whose powers we can get the best sense of right now, just because she, you know, shows up in the barren tundra, and she has like the snowflake. It's pretty easy to guess she has ice powers, so she's the one that we kind of can imagine the fight the best. As you know, ice and fire versus ice. And honestly, Gray has fought so many ice users in his time. I don't know what more she can bring to the table, I guess. You know, he's fought, off the top of my head, Leon, Silver, Invel, and so I'm not so sure. I don't know. I don't know whether to think this is going to be the most interesting fight or the least. The fight with Hakune. Youko, we just don't know anything about her. Same with Mimi, besides the fact that Mimi is very, very buff. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, I imagine, though, going back to the first half of the chapter, they're all going to be involved in spiritual arts. And we don't know a lot about spiritual arts. It's still kind of vague what they are. She just uses, all we see of them is Wendy coding herself and Erza in the spiritual arts to destroy the magic men. But we don't really have a good sense of what else they can do. And maybe that's the thing that will make Hakune unique compared to Silver and Invel and Leon and all of the other ice users this series has given us. But yeah, we kind of, you know, get a little bit of an introduction to Spirior. We get introduction to at least 3 of the Moonlit beauty gods, and we set up the next 3 fights. And that's kind of it for this chapter. It's a good time. But it's nothing groundbreaking. It's just really setting us up for the next stage, the, I guess, first stage of this arc. You know, we barely got here, and it's time to start fighting Celine's minions. And yeah, we'll see how this all goes from here. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, you know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!